You posted stuff about your mental health and stuff just now. Are you still struggling a bit? I know you said you'd bipolar disorder as well, which a wee bit I was like, I get like,
Yeah.
I get it. Because you went, some of you will go, that'll make sense. And I was like, I'm the sum.
It's funny because so many folk done that. And like, because I'm
only kidding, by the way. I told you, I was a wee bit annoyed at the start, but I honestly was like, I looked at your stuff and I was like, he won't actually dislike me if he meets me.
So I want to explain that in detail as to why I think that's important. But
we talk about what happened.
Yeah, so basically, and I'll prefix this with the reason why. So like, I think that people like you and me who are willing to put your face onto something and back up something is very important. And when we talked about how Friday is, you've got all these little hundreds of people in echo chambers chatting shit. And I think it's important when people like us are willing to put your face out for other people to see us conversating on something like that. So basically what happened was you post a video on something. Cardio doesn't really elicit fat loss, but what you meant was it's easier for people to have a route to market in weightlifting or in lifting weights than there is to cardio. And
there's a lot of nuance in that subject itself,
especially specific,
like loads of nuance.
Even when we're talking about CrossFit and your specific clientele, to that way, like it's very different. If I'm taking somebody for 3 hours of workouts and I've got very high level sport athletes that are doing 3 training sessions a day, of course it does. But if it's somebody who you're just trying to get into the gym for the first time to squat, bench, deadlift, if they come in and walk on a treadmill for 10 minutes, which might be the max of what they're capable at that time, is that going to elicit any fat loss? Is it fuck? Like you'd be as well just walking to the shopping store, parking further away from.
But even the more nuance in that, the way I sort of think about it is also from my past experience and also the type of people that I speak to. And like the barrier to entry for lifting is obviously harder because it's a skill set that you need to learn. Yeah. And then I look at like the low barriers to entry for cardio, and from talking to like however many people I've worked with that's like my type of client that I attract, I always like feel that they go to like spin classes, those sort of things. So I'm more just trying to give them, I'm trying to break that barrier to entry to lifting and try to get them. But see if they went, here I go to CrossFit, I would be like, that I'm not talking to you. Or even just like some sort of functional class. But it's like the people that want to learn absolutely nothing but still want to, because you also have the people that are just never ever going to do anything, and I'm not trying to talk to them people. They can do what they want, but it's the people that are already like, I would like to learn lifting, but this spin class is so much easier to not do. I'm trying to convince them to lift. And that's pretty much it. That's the way I'm looking at it.
But also I agree with it from a point of longevity. If I could pick one for somebody, when I talk to like, so a lot of the clients that I've had recently have been much older, but there's one specific client and she loves me talking about it all the time. Matty, she's 27 stone. She's post-cancer. She's in remission. Her hips are full of tumors, blah, blah, all this kind of stuff. And she now does 5 classes a week. And for her, cardio realistically is relatively unrealistic, but moving, lifting some type of weight is going to stop the likelihood of degenerative bone disease. It's going to help her moving. Like it was a huge step for just to get her sitting up off and on of a box. So like that kind of stuff, weightlifting for that. And now, so it just completely depends on the clientele. Now when I'm talking to older clients, it is all about degenerative bone disease. Cardio isn't going to help that, whereas lifting weights is. So like, there's so much nuance to it all over the shop.
And the hard thing is short form content. That's why I was sort of like, like, you actually did make me think about stuff. That's how I know we'll have a decent conversation, because I've changed the way I saw. The thing is, when I started, I built it all off short form content, and I don't even see if I watched my first like 200 videos, I'd be like, I would never say that ever again. Do you know what I mean? So it's like a whole thing where you're learning more and more. And then if you take, when you've came at me and said, whether I think you're putting a bad rep on cardio, I'm not actually meaning that. So I'm like, I did go back and watch it and go, right, where has he picked that actually from? After I got over the anger.
I was there as well. CrossFit Gavin, it's fine. I got past that too. It's fine. I got over it.
That's so funny.
I knew you fucking knew it would rattle me as well. I was like, fucking hell. Man.
I just looked at him and what's the thing that
CrossFit straight away. I'm like, oh, fucking.
So you basically commented twice something about, can't remember, it was just something about, I think you said that you used to respect you or something, and I was like, that got me.
Like, fuck you.
You bastard.
So then I thought about, right, why did I actually do that? Because it's the same with, so I don't know if you've seen this Eddie Ab, you'll definitely have seen him.
And he was beefing James Smith and
mental, right? Anyway, so I think that if people, and you were
explain who he is, by the way, because people might, so he's a ex-bodybuilder.
Ex-bodybuilder. I think he was he'd done the Olympia at some point. Like, he was ridiculously in shape, but his views are so far to one side that he demonizes everything. So he says all you should eat is avocados, eggs, like a hugely high fat diet, blah, blah, like, and that's what will be the be all and end all. But then he always says this research, this science, but he never points to any specific studies anywhere that exist for anything. And I'm all for people that want to have an opinion, but then don't prefix it with, and it's a very common thing, and I've seen it lately with the studies and the research, but then you ask and they don't back it up. Whereas people who say, he does this thing and this is what I think, and then just stop there. Cool. Completely get it. People go, yeah, all of the science and all of the studies. I'm like, you're speaking nonsense. It's bullshit. And so, like, I've done a couple of things because he called out a doctor. So that I done a video on it.
Which one?
Dr. Ids. I think.
I've spoke to him lots of times. Me and him started TikTok at the same time.
Right,
He's massive now, obviously, but
he's a smart cookie as well.
Some of the stuff I like him, right? But sometimes he comes out with some stuff, and I'm like, that's not right. You've used a paper, but that's a very unhelpful thing you've just said. Do you know what I mean? That's what I also don't always like about just pointing to studies. Because I also go, but where is that applicable to the average human? And I borderline think, as a doctor, surely it should all be applicable to like a normal. If you're helping someone in a medical and lifestyle sense, I'm like, so how does that apply to the average person?
Yeah, agreed. So, but his stuff, this is the guy that stands in a supermarket and shouts, "This is all shit," and I hate it so much. So for somebody like him, I feel like he has an obligation, and this was a comment I made to you, and you clearly responded to it in a way, "Oh, come on the podcast and we'll chat." Whereas he just will not respond to anybody apart from somebody that's clickbaity. And so I think like it's important for people like you or for like me or like anybody who has any type of following, if they're going to say something, to be able to go, well, I'm going to back up why I say that thing. And like, I think other people, because it's so confusing. Imagine if somebody comes into the space now, you're out of shape, and you meet, say you get his content, so Eddie's content, and you get yours. And you go, right, these two people are in these two echo chambers. They decide which one of those they want based on essentially who shouts the loudest or who they can resonate with. And if that's him, I feel like that's dog shit. Like, that, personal opinion, whatever, but I feel like it's going to breed such unhealthy habits and so on and so forth. But at least if he was willing to have a conversation with you, somebody like you, and say, right, well, let's chat about it and knock it out, people would see that they are just two different viewpoints, although they align to the same thing. And that's what kind of annoys me about it. It's like everybody's just living in that realm now where they just want to shout about the clickbaity thing and the clickbaity thing. And I think it went at me where I was like, I feel like we should talk about this openly, you know what I mean? Because that's good for people to see. But you don't see any of it. You just see this person post their stuff and their stuff and their stuff, and nobody really like collabs from completely different viewpoints.